Hello folks, Asalieri here for another edition of Reviewing a Reviewer. Today's subject matter, a YouTube user known as the Navgtr. Here's his channel. Wait, according to this, Navgtr isn't a person, it's apparently
the National Academy of Video Game Testers and Reviewers Corporation.
Holy poop, is this legit? Well, the short and the long answers are no. Recognized by just about no one, these guys are just another faction of online reviewers. Of course, they only seem to have one reviewer who happens to narrate all of their reviews. More on that later. So, what kind of opinions can we expect from this prestigious and important to the world of gaming faction of awesomeness?
And frankly, we don't care about the multiplayer stuff. No one buys a game specifically for multiplayer options.
Yeah, absolutely no one bought Super Smash Bros. Brawl. It was a total financial disaster for Nintendo. Absolutely no one owns a Wii or an Xbox either. But you know, this is just scratching the surface of the stupidity that is Navgtr. Well, for starters, their reviewing series is called Gaming in the Clinton Years. But check this out, their very theme song is an anachronism. Now, for those of you who don't know, that theme song was pulled from the NES version of Shadowgate, a game that was released in 1989. Now, if you know your history, you'll know Clinton wasn't president back then. Hell, it would have made much more sense to use the theme song I use in Reviewing the Reviewer. At least you'd be in the correct decade. And why did they choose an NES title to pull their theme from? Wouldn't SNES, Genesis, or PS1 music be more appropriate as a representation of gaming in the 90s? But I digress a bit. Let's get back to what the actual reviews say. There's a ton of them, so I decided to pull them more or less at random.
Konami also treads into sequel territory with Castlevania, Symphony of the Night. Although we found the game to be a disappointment, we couldn't help but be sucked into the game.
So the game was such a disappointment, they enjoyed the heck out of it. How dare a game be fun?
We think the game is fun, but again, way overhyped. This is a traditional 2D platform experience, with no in-game cinemas or anything to set it apart from previous Dracula outings.
You know, just because there weren't too many FMV sequences in this one, doesn't mean that there weren't any in-game cinematics. What on earth do you call this?
For them to die than to let them compound their sins. Begin by slaying that one over there.
No, it wasn't like this.
What's wrong? Alucard.
My mother never said such a thing.
What do you mean? Kill them and bring them happiness.
Couldn't have said it better myself, Lisa. Anyhow, as for stuff that sets this one apart from the previous Castlevanias, well, you play as Alucard now. Instead of a whip, you get a ton of different swords to play with. They added an RPG twist with the menu, spells, and equipment. You could customize your arsenal to suit your playstyle. You had familiars. As a half-vampire, you had the power to morph into different things. You're not playing as a Belmont. And that's just a quick skim! There are tons of improvements that make this one of the best Castlevanias in existence. Navgtr seems to have missed the point here.
The unification of side-scrolling action and character-building RPG elements is unique and impressive, but almost unnoticeable in terms of the effect on gameplay.
What? How do you figure? Never before did you have an arsenal this big in a Castlevania game. You can play it again and again, trying different combinations of weapons alone. I saw a guy use nothing but nunchucks. And with the growth potential of the character, you could survive the game much easier than, say, when you were a Belmont with a fixed and limited amount of health. Exactly what went unnoticed here, Navgtr?
Besides the overdone side-scrolling nature of the game, we also have a minor complaint about one aspect of the game's control. You can't jump in the middle of a swing. Think about that for a moment. If you're standing still and you swing your whip, you can't jump until the whip has come all the way back to you. Now that's ridiculous, folks. Ridiculous and frustrating.
No, ridiculous is you calling that a whip when it's painfully obvious that it's a sword. By the way, minor complaint is right. I never ran into trouble with the controls on SOTN, and I don't imagine any actual gamers did either. You can swing while jumping, so what's the problem?
The bottom line is, unlike Crash Bandicoot 2, Castlevania does not take old-school gameplay and put it in a flattering 3D format. Instead, Castlevania just creates more of the same.
You're joking, right? Both Crash Bandicoot 1 and 2 were 3D in their gameplay style. Crash 2 offered nothing new from its predecessor except for a shorter game and new villains. What kind of an example was that? Well, okay.
While Final Fantasy Tactics can certainly be admired for its depth, take a look at this partial list of reading material in the tutorial. It doesn't take long to realize that this game is incredibly slow. The battles take forever, and half the time you're just watching the others move.
You may want to consider fighting games, perhaps?
Surprisingly, the game allows you to see an ending even on the easiest level. We got the ending for the Incredible Hulk.
On second thought, those require more ability than you apparently have.
The amount of stuff to learn and read is exhausting. 90% of the dialogue is unnecessary.
Okay, obviously you empty-headed morons don't understand the concept of RPGs.
The game also features way too much dialogue.
Yeah, you really don't understand RPGs, do you?
Like the Guardian Forces in Final Fantasy VIII, once you capture a Pokemon, you can train it by battling other Pokemon for experience points.
Damn, I must have missed that part in FF8 where my Ifrit and I ran around fighting wild Bahamutes, and eventually he evolved into Diabolos.
Some of the wackos who watch our show would consider this statement a sacrilege and evidence of ignorance.
Oh, I'd definitely call them wackos if they tune into your misinformed garbage.
GoldenEye is an excellent game, even with its flaws. Experienced players will beat it quickly, though, so some of you might be better off renting it.
Yeah, exactly where should we rent it from? The magical castle in the sky where the beanstalk leads to? They charge way too much for rentals. Okay. So here's the scoop on the reviewers, finally. According to this disclaimer on their website, these reviews were apparently the opinion of real 90s reviewers. But I call bullshit. And you know why? Well, first of all, they never cite who allegedly wrote these original reviews that they're supposedly reading off of in any part of their videos. Secondly, they all sound eerily similar in style and the fact that they always refer to themselves as we or us. And thirdly, this.
We got the ending for the Incredible Hulk. The control gets a B. Due to the Infinity Gems, the gameplay gets a generous B as well, and the challenge gets a C. Street Fighter veterans should be able to whip through this game. All in all, an interesting alternative. Now here's the ending for the Incredible Hulk.
There were no real online video reviews of video games back then. So this footage has to inevitably be Navgtr's. If it was original video footage of some nameless 90s reviewer, why would they need to dub it over? Wouldn't the endeavor to keep it as is, as they state as their cause, be better served by keeping the original video's voiceover? And why would a reviewer in the 90s write about how he got the ending for the Hulk and have footage for it if it's a written review? So it really doesn't add up. Navgtr clearly films their own footage of gameplay and writes their own reviews, possibly for the lulz. Because there really isn't any other reason. I mean, there's no iota of good info in there or any relevant anything. Oh, join me next time where I will show you their review of Super Metroid, among others, where they will substitute reviewing for just telling you how to get through the beginning stages.
I will see you later, folks.